We're back on Nemo Nation with another fast-paced Fastport Studios half hour.
One of the folks we were really looking forward to seeing up in Washington, of course, he lives about 5 blocks from here, is BB the King. Man, I love that. Jim can really come up with some good nicknames, can he? Yeah. BB the King. Brad Bentley, who heads up Fastport. And, of course, we're in the Fastport Studios here in the historic Degas House in New Orleans. Fastport solving America's toughest problems in recruiting and workforce challenges. And they do it, through research and technology, but also, most importantly, people. And we're really going to see people at play in Washington this week. From registered apprenticeships to veteran readiness. Not friendly, ready. There's a difference. Learn more at fastport.com or nationalapprenticeship.org. Speaking of learning things, you got to do is go to atri.org and you'll learn more than you probably want to know about this industry. Dan Murray is going to be joining us for our new segment that is, Rebecca Brewster kicked it off last Monday morning. It's a weekly segment in addition to the continuing ATRI on the Air long-form monthly segment, and we're calling it the Monday Morning Memo. And Dan Murray, the Senior VP at ATRI, and Dan was in a meeting last week. He's going to share a little bit about who it was with and what it was about. We're calling it ATRI meets RTCC. Good morning, Dan. That's a little bowl of alphabet soup to get us going here this morning.
Hey, it's good to hear your voice, Dave. How's everything going?
So far, so good, but it's early yet. But, we are wrapping up.
And it's only Monday.
I know, right? But we're wrapping up this year pretty quick. And you guys got together with the Research and Technology Coordinating Committee that I'm not so sure a lot of folks know a great deal about, maybe never even heard of it. So there are some really high stakes functions and purpose that you guys have for the coalition. Is this? Would you call this a coalition?
Well, it's sort of that way. First of all, let me point out the obvious. The Federal Highway Administration is the single biggest arm of the U.S. Department of Transportation, and they oversee everything you can imagine, from roads and bridges to concrete, pavement, roadside landscaping. They cover everything. I mean, they provide the large percentage of all the revenue that goes to the state DOTs. It's called the Federal Formula Funds. Well, they also do a lot of research, believe it or not. They're working on better, harder, more resilient concrete. They're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is going to fit in transportation in the future. They're studying autonomous vehicles, you name it. Obviously, safety is way at the top of the list. So they're researching millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of critical issues. Some are to address issues we've suffered and faced today. Others, they're speculating out 20, 30 years, and what are we going to need our transportation system to look like? The good news is they don't do that in a vacuum. So they have something called the Research and Technology Coordinating Committee, and I sit on that. It's chaired by the Secretary of Transportation for the state of Utah. It has a few academic folks and then a number of state DOTs. Good or bad, Dave, I'm the only freight representative on it. But we provide recommendations and guidance to them in terms of what their priorities should be, where they should put their funds. Believe it or not, Federal Highway Administration has its own research centers. One of the most famous is something called the Turner Fairbank Research Center. And so we also provide direct guidance to the researchers when they're doing bridge testing, pavement testing, looking at things like the role of rivers eating out the sand under bridges and dropping the bridges into the water. So, that stuff doesn't happen very often. And it's mostly because Federal Highway is constantly figuring out how to build a better mousetrap. And so this RTCC, as we call it, we provide regular guidance multiple times a year in terms of what their focus should be, what their priorities should be.
Wow, that is very interesting. I wasn't fully cognizant of all that they did. It's very interesting, but you said something that I want to pull out. You said, for good or bad, ATRI is the only freight entity in the committee. And I'm wondering, maybe that's good because you guys, you come in with the industry in a briefcase, so to speak, with all of the research that you have done for years and years. So it's like, I remember the joke about the Texas Ranger. You know, they send one Texas Ranger because, well, it only takes one. It only takes one ATRI, in a sense, to be on this committee. So I think that makes a lot of sense in a way.
Yeah, and I have to give this group credit, not just the RTC members, but also FHWA, Federal Highway Administration. They are very receptive to understanding freight issues and what government research is needed to address those. So, even though we're only one of 4 freight modes, and certainly we're not even the biggest piece of the pie in terms of vehicles on the road, they're very, very open and interested in figuring out what the freight industry needs from transportation and what research will further that, that priorities of sorts.
The purview of the Federal Highway Administration, as you say, it's kind of over everything, but they don't really get into the issues that the industry is wrangling with right now, the English language stuff, the CDL problem, all of those types of things. They're strictly talking about the infrastructure, correct?
Well, not purely the infrastructure. Again, they have a lot of purview in the world of safety, and obviously transportation design. But you're right, things like CDLs and English proficiency and that sort of thing is definitely in the bailiwick of FMCSA. But the entire backbone of transportation sits with the Federal Highway Administration, and that's why they're in charge of tens of billions of dollars in annual spending. We want to make sure that money is spent wisely. We certainly want to make sure the research is focused on things that matter, and that's what the RTC does. It provides that sort of guidance and advisory role.
One of the things, that you guys do, obviously, this every year you put out the top 10 issues, and that was issued out in San Diego a couple months ago. And we always do 2 ATRI on the Air shows to break those down. Might have to do 3 now because you guys keep adding more lists to the lists. Federal Highway prioritize? Obviously, everybody has to prioritize, as you guys do, in terms of what to research. Do you guys get a chance to take the lead sometimes, where Federal Highway will say, ATRI is looking at something that we ought to take a look at? Do they? In other words, do you have that opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, Federal Highway and supporting groups do a lot of crash worthiness testing on vehicles. For instance, does the car give or does the bridge give when there's a crash? Only recently I pointed out to them that nobody has ever done crash worthiness testing on Class 8 trucks. And so they're very intrigued with that. And I'm not saying, you have to race out and smash up some Freightliners and Volvos right away, but the fact that truck drivers don't have any, I'm going to call it, scientific basis to say, here's how a truck protects you, or here's where more protection is needed. That generally doesn't exist in the trucking world. And so they're now sort of receptive to that idea, and they're, going to figure out what might be done in that world.
Wow, fantastic. That's very promising indeed. Hey, Dan, thank you so much. And we will hopefully see you again soon, either on the Monday Morning Memo with ATRI or on ATRI on the Air. Dan,